Hello, everybody. Welcome to yet another Packers chat here live in the Packers visitor, or excuse me, it's not the Packers visitors locker room. It is the visiting locker room at Lambeau Field. The Packers do not have to hang out in here, but I will say, for a visiting locker room, it's really not so bad. It's pretty spacious. It's a pretty spacious, clean, somewhat up-to-date visitors locker room.
As someone who has been in all but maybe 3 or 4 visiting locker rooms in the league, this is about as good as it gets in terms of space. This is, it's you can operate. Usually, like Soldier Field, okay. You get all kinds of equipment, clothes, bags, all kinds of stuff on the floor, and in a cramped like Soldier Field room, you are just you're tripping over landmines basically. I mean, it's unbelievable. You don't have that problem in here.
I will say, Kansas City also terrible, really bad visitors locker room. But guys,
remember that from the preseason a few years ago. Yeah.
Guys, this is not the visitors locker room show where we discuss visitors locker rooms across the league. It's the show where we discuss your questions.
Candy.
About the Green Bay Packers. Ryan really wanted to talk about candy. I mean, Halloween is so
She doesn't like Almond
yesterday.
Joys.
I do like Almond Joys, but that's
not what you said earlier.
No. Well, what I said was they were not my top choice candy. They would never be what I go for first.
Okay.
And if you would go for Almond Joys first, then you're...
What's your favorite candy bar?
My favorite candy bar. I don't know if I have a favorite candy bar. I really like Reese's. And I like Kinder chocolate.
I've never heard of that.
German chocolate.
That sounds good.
It's the milk chocolate on the outside.
Feel free to join.
White chocolate on the inside. It's really good.
Almond Joy is my favorite candy bar. The holy trinity for me, yes, is Almond Joys, peanut M&Ms, and Milk Duds. You hit me up on those 3. I'm very happy. It's a
weird combination.
Chocolate with coconut or caramel or peanuts. That's basically, I don't like just pure chocolate. I like chocolate with something else. A combination, a melding.
Okay, I'm a simple girl. I like dark chocolate or milk chocolate that's all chocolate is good. There's no such thing really as bad chocolate, but I do right now in my cabinet at home have like a bar of really good high cocoa percentage dark chocolate that I break a little piece off.
I do like dark chocolate. It's hard to go wrong with that.
Love good dark chocolate. All right, enough of that stuff. Halloween is over.
It's in my head.
Hello, everybody. Let's see what we got. We're over on Facebook. We're also live on Periscope and YouTube, but I am taking questions from Facebook today. If you're not on Facebook and you'd like to get your question into me, you can always tweet me, DM me, carrier pigeon. I don't really care how you get the question to me. I'll take a look, and if I like the question, I'll address it.
Wooden ship.
So yes, Guy says that peanut butter M&Ms are the best. They are pretty good.
They're good.
Yeah,
they are good. What are actually the best? I stand corrected. Not peanut M&Ms, almond M&Ms.
Ooh.
If you've ever had the almond, I think they're kind of like in a tan baggage.
Tan baggage.
Those. Usually like December time when I'm mentally tired, it's late in the season, I'll bring in some almond M&Ms and just munch to get me through the day. So yeah, that's
full energy boost. John likes peanut butter cups. Good taste there, John. Tim's a milk chocolate fan.
Almond Joys, people.
Yes. Dean wants to ask Ryan, probably to rub it in his face a little bit. How about them gnats, Ryan?
Dean, man. Dean, why you gotta go there? Why you gotta go there, Dean?
Dean is much like us. We like to give Ryan
I'm not allowed to swear on this show, so don't go there.
All right, we'll reel it in, and perhaps you can talk to Ryan about that offline. So why don't we dial it back in, bring it back down to earth, talk a little bit about the Packers.
No World Series.
And John is doing us a favor right now. He's asking us a Packers-related question, so we appreciate that, John. He wants to know, I'm sure what all of you guys want to know right now, is Davante Adams playing on Sunday? The Packers receiver has been out since week 4 after sustaining a turf toe injury against the Philadelphia Eagles. Very slowly, as we mentioned yesterday, he's been returning to practice in a more full capacity. Half-speed routes, three-quarter speed routes, and he's getting to the point where we're seeing him in practice, taking part in drills with the team, not just by himself, and we're starting to get a better sense of he's getting healthy and he's getting really close. Could this potentially be the weekend that we see number 17 out there?
The only reason at this point that I could see for him not playing is if they don't want to return him to the game action in the week that he returns to practice. Sometimes you'll see that, especially with like soft tissue or ligament injuries. They ease him into practice, miss the game, full week of practice the next week, then play. With that said, my guess would be that I would guess that he would be questionable on the injury report, and he jumped over a dude today. I mean, he literally, if you haven't seen it, shout out to John Duran on Twitter. He got the money shot of literally Davante Adams jumped over another human, like cleared him, which surprisingly I've never done. So I don't know what that's like, but I would imagine that means the toe feels pretty good.
I would think so, yes.
Probably good indication.
Shout out to John of WLUK, the Fox affiliate here in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I turned my camera off, or I didn't have my camera on Davante at that point. It was toward the end of the shooting period where the guys were stretching, and Davante was running to participate in individual drills, and he literally just hurdled what I guess, I'm not really sure who it was, an assistant trainer, an assistant coach of some sort, and just hurdled him. Just jumped right over him, 5 to 6 feet of hurdling. And my guess is that your toe's probably feeling pretty good. You're feeling like you're able to take some risks if you're willing to jump over a man.
And I even asked, I literally asked Matt LaFleur, I was like, Matt, would it be safe to assume that if Davante Adams' toe was a significant issue at this point, you would advise him not to jump over other people? And, I mean, it's a safe assumption. Yeah, so his toe clearly feels good. It clearly feels good, and I would be surprised if he didn't play. Now, there is always, like I said, that caveat of you return to practice, miss that game week, then a full week of practice, and then – but at this point, I mean, he did a little bit of practice activity. He didn't really practice last week, but he did a little bit of practice activity last week. I would guess that, all indications are, to me anyway, that he'll play.
Yes, and on top of all of that, I mean, he's been saying this whole time that he will play when he's ready to play. He has not said, someone yesterday I saw tweeted at me, he said that, hey, Davante said he's feeling great and he's ready to go. He hasn't said that yet. He said that he's feeling better. He has not said he's ready to go. But my sense is that he's not going to go out there until A, he's cleared by medical staff, and B, he feels and he knows in his body that he's ready to get out there. So we'll see. We'll see what the medical staff decides. We have not received the final injury report for today, so we do not have a definitive answer as to whether or not he's questionable, although you said that Matt LaFleur indicated that he would be.
I think that most likely he's going to be questionable.
Okay, so, I mean, that's a pretty good sign that he's going to play if he is indeed questionable on the injury report.
Another indication. All the indications are all piling up that he's probably going to play. That's the one caveat is I could see them doing that, but my guess is he'll play.
Mm-hmm. Matt LaFleur said today that everyone will know and the decision will be made 90 minutes before the game, which is when we figure out, when we find out who is active for the game.
It's a pretty good line. So basically, I'm not going to tell you right now, even though he might indeed know. He's not going to say.
So yes, as we mentioned, the injury report is not out. However, everyone practiced in some capacity today and yesterday. All 52 active roster guys plus Jay Sternberger, Ibrahim Campbell. I mean, Greg Roberts is on PUP and is not returned to practice yet, but he was out there on the sidelines doing his rehab stuff. So everyone practiced in some capacity. That doesn't mean some guys aren't going to be questionable for the game on Sunday, but it's certainly a good optimistic indicator.
It means that they're going to have, at this point, 6 healthy scratches on the inactive. Not 7 because they're at 52, but they're going to have 6 guys that don't make the 46 game day roster that are healthy, and there's no injuries. It's remarkable. This team is getting a lot of. They're good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this team's lucky. This team is very talented. It's the most talented team they've had in a few years. There's no question about that. It's a deeper roster, more balanced roster. But along with that, and this is the same with any other team in the league, if you have a great season, you have a special season, you need some luck too in this league. This team's getting a lot of luck as well, a lot of good fortune as well. They're making some of that luck. I mean, I think Matt LaFleur's approach to the schedule has paid clear dividends in keeping his players fresh. So there's a reason why they're healthy. Some stuff outside of their control, like the fact that a week after they don't have to play Patrick Mahomes, the Chargers fire their offensive coordinator. Like it's It's all lining up. They're not going to have Cam Newton. Cam Newton's in Green Bay now. He's not going to be in, he might not be in Green Bay in next week, or he's not going to be playing. So,
he might be in Green Bay, but he just exactly might not
be
playing.
Like week after week after week, the fortune is pretty strong with this team. I think when you have that combined with the clear talent that they have and the production and the fact that they're really good, that's when you start to sense a special season. I mean, it's reminded me of, I'll never forget standing in January of 2015 inside the Don Hutson Center before this team went to Seattle for the NFC Championship game, crossing off every single name, every single number on the numerical roster because they all were there. They were every one of the 53 was practicing that late in the season and thinking, this does not happen. It just does not happen. And we're not there yet, obviously. But week 9, to have everyone on the active roster healthy and practicing in pads, and then on Friday, it's pretty rare. It hasn't happened here since 2014. I mean, it's really rare.
So we've got a question here from Kenneth asking about Aaron Jones. So I don't know if you've had an opportunity to catch up with Aaron Jones since he sustained some sort of shoulder injury in the game against Kansas City. He left the game. He came back, obviously, to finish it up and was a huge part of the game after he came back. So he wants to know, will Dexter Williams get more carries this weekend because of Aaron Jones' shoulder injury last week? My gut feeling is no, especially because Jones has been healthy enough to practice. There's been no indication that his shoulder injury is going to impact the number of snaps. It very well might, but there's no indication that it's going to impact his availability at the very least for this game on Sunday. And on top of that, you got a healthy Jamal Williams. And on top of that, you got a healthy Danny Vitale if you really need him to be the running back as well. So you've got those guys behind him. My gut feeling is that they don't need to put Dexter Williams out there. And he's still a guy, and I know Matt LaFleur has said no redshirt seasons for these younger guys, but he's still developing.
Yeah, no, I mean, Matt LaFleur can say that. It's nice of him to say. I think this is a redshirt year for Dexter Williams. So, and they believe in his talent, and for good reason. I think he's a very dynamic, talented runner of the ball. Get the ball in his hands, he can make plays. It's just a matter of everything else kind of developing. He was a 6th-round pick for a reason. And I know Aaron Jones was a 5th-round pick in his first start at Dallas in 17. He rushed for 125 yards, but that's the exception. It's not the norm. It's not what you usually get from those late day 3 guys. So, no, I don't expect any real change there.
This is an interesting question from Andrew, and it's a question that I also have. He wants to know if we think that there was any truth to the Packers' interest in Le'Veon Bell. I know he went on a radio show and said that the Packers were one of the teams that were interested in trading for him at the deadline. Is there any truth to that? I mean, it's hard for us to really gauge that.
I don't know. I know that I can report that they were very interested in the spring. They just were not willing to go up to his price. They did consider Le'Veon Bell this spring before free agency, and ultimately the Jets outspent them. I don't know about whether they were for the deadline. I honestly don't know. So, but this is a team that has a history. In their history, they have done research, they have considered, they have talked about Le'Veon Bell. So if that's been reported, that would not surprise me.
Paul wants to know, why not crank up the heat in the Hutson Center for game prep? That would be interesting, playing in a sauna.
I was a little surprised they didn't, to be honest with you.
Is that an option?
I know they've made it really cold before. They've had some late seasons practices where they would keep all the doors open, turn the heat off, and have all the doors wide open. And I mean, you'd have snow basically like trickling in, and it was frigid. I can't remember if they've ever made it into a sauna or not. I would think that they'd be able to. I mean, they have heat, and you can shut the door, and it's what everyone in Wisconsin does anyway, right? So I would think they'd be able to, but I was surprised that they didn't. Matt LaFleur did say, though, make sure you drink water, which is like, obviously.
It's a good reminder, good life lesson. You should also drink a lot of water.
Drink water, folks.
Drink water.
Health advice here on the Packers Chat.
Yes, after we just ate a bunch of M&Ms
I've
off
had
camera.
way too many. I've had way too many today.
Halloween's a dangerous time of year for everybody.
It really is.
But indulge, enjoy the treats, do all that good stuff, but also drink water.
Eat responsibly.
Yes. So a lot of you in here, we talked a little bit yesterday about Rashawn Gary, and we've got some commenters, including Tommy, who wants to see more Rashawn Gary out on the field. He says, give the Smith some rest. He's also the Packers' #1 pick. Play the man. So I think to that, I would say Rashawn Gary has seen the field more and more this season. He has been giving Za'Darius and Preston Smith breaks in a lot of different situations, in some very crucial, important situations for the Packers defense. And my gut tells me that they're not going to play Rashawn Gary more and more if the Smiths are healthy and capable of being out there. Za'Darius Smith does not strike me as the type of guy who would be like, no, like, I'm good. Don't put me in, coach.
He's said it, right? He said that before. He's hard to get him off the field.
Exactly. And even when he does get off the field due to injury, he's somehow able to muscle it out and come back and finish the game, sometimes even repeatedly, injury after injury after injury, which at a certain point you have to be like, okay, how do we keep this guy from hurting himself, because he is so willing and able to get back onto the field. But you also have to know that he is one of the Packers' star players, and you want him out there. And that's not to say that Rashawn Gary won't get opportunities, because he will. They're not going to play 100% of the snaps, but I don't think you need to reel in Za'Darius Smith or Preston just yet.
I was a little surprised with not to say I thought they were bad players, but don't exaggerate this. I was a little surprised though with how good the Smiths have been. They've simply done things and I wrote about this week. They've done things that they hadn't done before. With how good they've been, it's hard to get them off the field. But even still, with that said, I always thought the fact that they brought in 2 starters in free agency, the writing was always on the wall, to me at least, that they were going to bring Rashawn Gary along at his own pace, and they were not going to overplay him early in the season. And I don't think any of that has anything to do with his long-term projection as a player in this league. I think it's a byproduct of they brought in 2 guys. They paid a lot of money to 2 guys to be starters. They have been everything that the Packers could have dreamt they'd be, and maybe even more. And they simply don't need Rashawn Gary at this point to be playing a lot of snaps, because the Smiths are capable of playing a lot of snaps. You look around the league, elite edge rushers like they have been, they play a lot of snaps. That's a position you get a lot of snaps from. So I don't think any of that's surprising, and I also don't think that's any indictment or condemnation of, well, Rashawn Gary is not playing very well or he might not pan out. I think it's just the fact they have the Smiths.
I really enjoyed your piece, Ryan, for what it's worth. I read
Thank you, Olivia.
Make sure you check it out over on Packers News if you haven't seen it yet. It was very insightful, and I enjoyed it.
That.
Yes. Steve says he's drinking whiskey, so he has no room for water.
Good man, Steve.
Drink responsibly, Steve.
I mean, I'm a Scotch man myself, but whiskey's okay as well.
Let's see what else we got from you guys. A lot of Rashawn Gary chatter, I see. Tedward wants to know. He wants us to talk about the secondary and how the scheme has evolved from week 1. Have you seen any sort of evolution?
Well, it was last week.
Straying from base defense has been like always the trend, I'd say.
Well, look, this is a press man team. They're going to press man on the outside. Last week there were a lot of soft zone. Why? Because the Chiefs have Olympic athletes on there. I mean, like literally Tyreek Hill has got Olympic speed. You can't run with them. So, and the comparison I made was, it's all right. You know what? I get to make a Mets comparison, and it actually works. All right, so Pete Alonso, if you're a baseball fan, I happen to love him. You hang a slider over the plate to Pete Alonso, he's going to hit it 450 feet, right? If you press man Tyreek Hill at the line of scrimmage and miss, it's a touchdown. Just is. You can't press man him for an entire game, because if you miss, you're dead. So that's why they were so much soft zone last week. That's what you have to do against speed guys of that status, that ability. But by and large, this is a press man team. This is a team that's going to play, that's going to get up on receivers at the line of scrimmage and use that physicality in man coverage. So I don't think that's changing, but that's kind of an example of when they say it's schemes, it's opponent specific with their scheme, kind of tailoring the scheme based on who you're playing.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Good stuff, Ryan. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
We've got Gerardo saying that tickets, I guess, for this weekend are starting at $450 before all the added service fees. Yikes. That's very expensive. I've heard these tickets are pretty expensive this weekend.
Yes.
and because they know that you guys travel really well.
In case you are wondering why this game didn't go to London, that's why. And in all honesty, I think that I know I was anticipating a little bit that, because the Packers really, really, really want to play in Europe. And they're one of the only teams that haven't right now. And they want to extend their brand overseas, wisely so. They haven't been able to because why? Teams don't want to give up the guaranteed full house, packed, sellout stadium that Packers on the road draw. You get Packers fans everywhere. You've seen it in your year on the beach.
Yes.
A lot of green out there.
A lot of green.
I kind of anticipated that this might be a game that they moved over because they only sit 30,000 seats in that soccer stadium that they have and that the Chargers play in. But what they're doing instead, it's a little thing called variable pricing. They're jacking up the prices, and they're getting their gate. And so even the Chargers in their 30,000 seat stadium, they're banking more money in having a home game than shipping that game overseas because of the variable pricing. So, yeah, this was always going to be an expensive game as soon as they kept it in L.A.
To be fair, the Packers also get some of that money too.
Yeah.
So it's everybody, guys.
It's league sharing, yeah.
Yep. So Norman also, he asks, if the Packers are leaving today for LA, which they aren't they going to make Sternberger or Campbell, I guess, are they going to do something with Sternberger or Campbell, or are they going to activate either one of them to the 53-man roster before they go? My guess is they're going to wait a little bit until the very last second.
They always could on a Saturday, and I get what you're saying. If they do, they won't. They'll be inactive. I mean, if they do. So I don't see them doing that either. They could, but I would doubt it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they've already got that's one less healthy scratch, right? Because they've already got to make that decision go from 52 to 46. So that's already a decision. So, Ryan, what was your prediction? I guess if you want to see all of our predictions, they will be up over on PackersNews.com. But we will share our predictions because they're our predictions. They're not representative of everyone at PackersNews.com. But, Ryan, even though I already know the answer to this, what is your prediction for this weekend?
Do you know the answer? Do you remember it?
We shared, yes, I think so.
I have him 31-21.
Yeah.
Melvin Gordon has just not been able to get on track since coming back from the holdout.
Yeah.
He hasn't rushed for more than 32 yards in a game. He did have his first touchdown last week, but Phillip Rivers can still sling it, but a one-dimensional pass-happy offense against this Packers defense, a pass-happy offense without the rushing attack against this Packers defense, it plays into their strengths. On the other hand, this is a home game for the Packers. They're not dealing with crowd noise. The Chargers will deal with crowd noise. The Packers aren't dealing with crowd noise. It's going to be a home game in L.A. It's a home game with sandwiched between two flights out west. So I think that they win pretty easily, 31-21. I don't think they break much of a sweat in Southern California.
So Ryan and I did not consult, but I went 34-21. So
it's just great minds.
One more field goal. I considered 31-21, but I picked 31 last week for the Packers score. So I decided to bump it up a little bit this week because I figured Kansas City would probably give them a little bit more of a run for their money when it comes to point production. But still, I mean, again, 34 points on the road. I think the Packers are capable of doing it. The Chargers have a solid defense, and they've got a good pass rushing tandem back there in Bosa and Ingram. So I still think, that all being said, that the Packers offensive line has had a pretty remarkable year so far. I mean, last game was a bit more of a challenge, but I think that they can hold off the Chargers defense this weekend.
They don't have anything like the skill players that the Chiefs do. I don't know if anyone in the league does. Phillip Rivers can still, he can still sling it, so he's going to get his yards. I mean, they're not going to shut out Phillip Rivers. I don't see that happening. Don't freak out when Phillip Rivers looks good, because he's a good quarterback with a heck of an arm, and he still has it. That's not really an indictment on the defense. It's just a matter of, you're playing a good quarterback. But I don't. L.A., I don't know what you thought going into the season. I thought that they were kind of a prime candidate for some regression. They've had a lot of things outside of, just on the football field kind of affect that a little bit, injuries, the holdout. But they've certainly regressed. They already have their 5 losses right now. It's one more than they had all last year. Mm-hmm. So they've been the team that has regressed this season.
Yes, they have, but they did beat the Bears.
They did beat the Bears,
Which
although
may not
that's
be
becoming
saying
a
very
completely non-special thing to do.
Yeah, gosh, what a difference. I mean, could you imagine knowing what we know now, going back to week 1?
Well, the Bears have been the regression and the regressed team in the NFC, just like the Chargers have been the regressed team in the AFC. I mean, and by the way, I didn't pick the Bears to go to the playoffs in the preseason, just to pat myself on the back a little bit. So I saw that coming. Because if you have Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, you're only going to be so good. But that's neither here nor there.
Okay, we won't open up that can of worms, but I know what you guys already think about it, so I'm sure you won't come for Ryan there because I think a lot of you people agree out there.
Just saying.
But anyway, that's enough for today. Thank you, Ryan, for your insight, and thank you guys for joining us. We will be on the road in LA this weekend, so make sure you come back to Packers News for all of your Packers coverage. We'll be live before the game, and we'll be live once again after the game. And we'll have tons of stuff on social media, lots of stuff over on PackersNews.com as well. So I think that's everything. If you're out in LA and you happen to see us, say hello. We love meeting you guys. We enjoy being able to put faces to your names because we do see your names and we recognize you guys. We know how many of you guys come back time and time again, regardless of what time we do this at, because we're always doing this at a different time. So we appreciate you guys and we appreciate you joining us. So thank you. Any final words, Ryan?
I love LA. Honestly. What a great time for us to go to LA.
Oh, thank God.
Get out of the snow. It was snowing on Halloween.
Wrong.
It's just against the Constitution.
Disgusting. It's
awful.
wrong. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day.